Hello and welcome to this lecture on fundamentals of electric drives. The last lecture was an introduction. So in this lecture, we will try to see the dynamics of electrical drives. So here is actually our motor, and the motor is driving a load. So what we have here is that we have a motor, and the motor is driving a load. The load is a mechanical load. In this case, the motor is an electromechanical device. So this basically gives us a torque. So the torque is, let's say, in this direction, and the motor is rotating in this direction, in the same direction as that of the torque. And the load is coupled with the motor by a mechanical coupling. So this is the coupling. So this is a mechanical coupling, which is a rigid coupling, which couples the motor with the load. And J is the total moment of inertia of the motor and the load combination. Now, what is the role of the load? The load torque is opposing the motor torque. We can see that the motor torque is in one direction, like this, and the load torque is opposing the motor torque. The load always opposes the motor torque. Most of the time, in the normal motoring operation, the load torque is in opposite direction to the motor torque. So the differential torque between the motor and the load is T minus TL. So this is the difference of the motor torque and the load torque. Now, what does this do? We have a electromechanical equation. This is, of course, mechanical equation, and torque is a mechanical variable. So if we write down this equation, we have an angular system here. It is a rotating system. So T minus TL, the differential torque, is equal to the rate of change of angular momentum, d by dt of j omega m. J is the moment of inertia. Omega m is the speed. This is the speed. The speed is in radian per second. We are using the SI unit. The unit of the speed is radian per second. And what is the unit of the inertia? The moment of inertia, the unit is kg meter square. So the differential torque is equal to the rate of change of angular momentum. So we have, let's say we have two variables here, J and omega m. So we have to differentiate by parts. So it is J d omega m by dt plus omega m dj by dt. Now, J is a moment of inertia of the motor and the load combination. Complete combination is J, the moment of inertia in kg meter square. Usually, the moment of inertia is constant. We are not changing the motor, we are not changing the load, the geometrical shape. So the inertia, the moment of inertia remains constant. So this quantity, the derivative of this is equal to 0. So dj by dt is 0, and hence we can write down this dj by dt equal to 0. So what we finally get here, T minus TL equal to J d omega by d. So it means the differential torque, the motor torque minus the load torque, is responsible for the acceleration, for the angular acceleration of the motor and the load combination. D omega by dt is the angular acceleration. This is the angular acceleration or deceleration. We can say acceleration or deceleration. So the motor torque minus the load torque is equal to J d omega by dt, and this quantity is sometimes called the inertial torque. Okay? So we can just write down like this, that T is equal to the motor torque, whatever is the torque given by the motor. You see that whenever we have motor and the load, which is driving the entire system? Motor is giving the motive power. Motor is driving the load. The load is a mechanical load. So if you switch off the power supply, suppose a fan is running. Whenever we switch on a fan, the motor is generating a torque, and the fan, the fins actually are at the mechanical load. We have the friction with the air, and since we have applied a torque through a motor, the speed gradually increases and settles down in the steady state. So exactly in the same way, the motor torque is equal to the load torque, the useful load torque, and this is called the inertial torque. This is because the motor has to accelerate against the inertia. So this is the inertial torque. So this is a very basic equation. The motor supplies for the useful load torque plus the inertial torque. Now, when the speed is constant, the inertial torque vanishes. So suppose omega m is constant. We have reached a steady state. In the steady state, so when we reach a steady state, what happens? The speed becomes constant. So when the speed is constant, d omega m by dt vanishes. So we can write down in that case that in the steady state what happens? That the speed is constant, so the derivative of the speed with respect to time is 0. So we can say that the motor torque is equal to the load. So this condition is only true in the steady state. So when the motor speed is constant, we can say that the motor torque is same as the load torque. Now, whenever we have the motor and the load, so we have to now understand some of the conventions. So what are the conventions? The speed torque conventions. So we will be discussing right now about the speed torque conventions and multi-quadrant operation. So what is the speed torque convention? We'll try to understand. And what do we mean by multi-quadrant operation? That also we need to understand. So usually we have two variables. As we already seen that we have the speed and we have the torque. All right, in this equation, what are the variables? We have the speed and we have the torque here. So we have usually two variables. One is the speed, and we take the speed in the y-axis, and we have the torque, and we take the torque in the x-axis. So which means speed is the dependent variable and torque is the independent variable. And here is the origin, because we are plotting with in xy plane. So we have basically 4 different quadrants. In quadrant 1, if we see here, the speed is positive and torque is also positive. When both the speed and torque are positive, we call this to be forward motoring. It is rotating in the forward direction. That is called forward motoring. When the speed is positive, here in the second quadrant, speed is positive, but the torque is negative. You can see that we have XY plane, and we are in the left hand side of the Y axis. So the torque is negative. Although the speed is positive, torque is negative. We call this to be forward braking. Why this is forward? We say forward or reverse based on the speed. The speed is positive here, and that's why we say that this is forward braking. Why it is called braking? Because the sign of the speed and the torque are opposite to each other. Power is negative. Here the power is positive. What is power? Power is a product of torque and speed. If we see, actually the torque unit is usually in Newton meter, and the speed unit is basically in radian per second. And the power is the product of torque and speed, and this is positive. And here in the second quadrant, the speed is positive, but the torque is negative. So the power is negative. And hence, we call this to be braking. So braking means power is negative. So the motor is behaving like a generator. The motor is not going forward, it is coming to rest. Braking means coming to rest. Power is negative means the mechanical energy is converted to electrical energy. And then in the reverse motoring, we have the opposite of what we have in the forward motoring. In this case, let's say that we are in the third quadrant here, and here the speed is negative here, because we are down below here, the speed is negative. Torque is also negative. Both the speed and the torque are negative. So what about the power? The power is the product of the speed and the torque. The power is positive. Since the power is a product of speed and torque, power is positive. So whenever we have positive power, we have motor. It means the motor is running in the opposite direction. The speed has become negative, and hence we can say that the motor is running in the opposite direction. What about the reverse braking? In the reverse braking, what we have is the speed is still negative, and that's why we call this to be reverse. And the torque is positive here. And since we have speed negative and torque positive, the product of speed and torque is negative. So the power is negative, and we call this to be reverse braking. Reverse means speed is negative. Here also we have reverse here because the speed is negative. Whenever we have speed negative, we call it to be reverse. Here also we have reverse because the speed is negative. And this is called braking because the power is negative. So we have 4 quadrants here: forward motoring, which means it's in the first quadrant, both are positive. Forward braking is in the second quadrant, speed positive, torque negative. And reverse motoring, we have the third quadrant, speed negative and torque negative, both are negative here, power is positive. And we have the fourth quadrant, we have speed negative and torque positive, and hence the power is negative. Now let us see a practical example. Now we should understand, does it have any practical significance? Yes. All of us have traveled in a lift. I mean, suppose we are in a multi-story building, and we have to go from the ground floor to, let's say, 5th floor, or maybe from 5th floor to ground floor or first floor. So we use the lift. Now lift is powered by a motor. And this is the situation of a lift. Lift is also sometimes called hoist. So we have four different quadrants here. We have speed and torque. Speed is in the y-axis and torque is in the x-axis here. Now in the first quadrant, we have the lift, and lift is basically something like a cage. This is the structure of the lift where either man or material is carried. And then we have what is called a counterweight. This is called a counterweight. So this is the cage, and this is called the counterweight. Counterweight. Now we are lifting a cage, and this is a pulley arrangement. This is a pulley arrangement here, and the motor is fixed to this pulley, and the motor is running either in the clockwise or anti-clockwise direction. Now we have a loaded cage and we have a counterweight, and the weight of the counterweight is chosen to be higher than that of the empty cage. Higher than that of the empty cage. Empty cage means when the cage is not loaded. When we have got hash mark, it is a loaded cage, and when we don't have the hash mark here, it's an empty cage. It means empty lift is going up, or empty lift is coming down, empty hoist is coming down. And the meaning of the loaded cage means the lift having main or material is being lifted or is being lowered. Now in this case, what happens here, that the net torque is down below. We have the gravitational pull here. So this is the sign of the load torque. It is the loaded cage is higher than the counterweight, the weight of the counterweight, and hence the torque is going downwards, TL, and this is the load torque. Load torque is, we can say here, clockwise direction. If you say the dial of a clock, it is in the clockwise direction. And we are trying to lift the loaded cage, lifting of a loaded cage. So we are trying to lift it. So when we are trying to lift it, what happens? The speed is in anti-clockwise direction. It is being lifted. And the load torque has to be opposed by the motor torque. The motor torque is opposing the load torque, is trying to lift the cage. So torque is in anti-clockwise direction. Speed is also in anti-clockwise direction. So anti-clockwise means positive. So we can say that the torque is positive and the speed is also positive. So this is the first quadrant. So this is equivalent to forward motoring. We have already said that the first quadrant is forward motoring. Now let us come to the second quadrant. The cage is now empty. The cage which was loaded in the first quadrant is made empty. There is no material, no main in the cage. So it is basically an empty cage, and the empty cage is being lifted up. So when it is an empty cage, the load of the counterweight is higher. So basically the load torque is in this direction. This is the direction of the load torque. The counterweight is heavier than the empty cage. So the load torque is trying to drive this pulley in the anti-clockwise direction. This is basically the situation of the load torque. The load torque is trying to drive this pulley in the anti-clockwise direction. So the motor torque has to oppose the load torque. So TL and T are opposite to each other. And since we are lifting an empty cage, the speed has to be in the anti-clockwise direction. So speed is anti-clockwise or counterclockwise. So here we see that the torque is negative, but the speed is positive. Anti-clockwise is positive. the motor torque, which is T, is in the clockwise direction. So speed positive, but the torque is negative. So this is forward braking. So this is the second quadrant, as we have already seen. This is the forward braking situation. In the third quadrant, we are lowering an empty cage. So the counterweight is heavier than an empty cage. So the load torque is here. Is basically trying to drive this pulley in the anti-clockwise direction. So this is the load torque. The motor torque has to oppose the load torque, and the speed has to be clockwise direction because we are lowering it. We are trying to lower the empty cage. So when we are trying to lower the empty cage, the pulley has to be driven in the clockwise direction. So the direction of speed is clockwise. The direction of torque is clockwise. Both T and omega m are negative, power is positive. So this is corresponding to the reverse motoring. So we have the third quadrant here. So third quadrant corresponds to reverse motoring. Similarly, in the fourth quadrant, we have a loaded cage. A loaded cage is being lowered, lowering a loaded cage. Lowering a loaded cage. Here, earlier we had lowering an empty cage. Here we are lowering a loaded cage. In the loaded cage, this is being loaded. This cage has been loaded, and we are trying to lower it. And we know that the weight of the counterweight is higher than that of the empty cage, but lower than that of the loaded cage. So here the loaded cage weight is higher. So this is the direction of the load torque. So which is trying to drive this pulley in the clockwise direction. So this is TL, and this is being lowered. So basically the lowering means basically coming down. The speed is clockwise, and the motor torque has to oppose the load torque. Here is the motor torque which is opposing the load torque. The motor torque is anti-clockwise direction. So the product of speed and the torque is negative. So the power is negative. And here we can say that we have the reverse braking because the speed is in the clockwise direction, which is reverse. The torque is anti-clockwise, which is positive. So we have the fourth quadrant, and the fourth quadrant is corresponding to reverse braking. So this is called the four quadrant operation of an electric drive. So if we see, actually this is an example. This is the mechanism in which the lift operates. In the lift, there is always a counterweight which is hidden, which we cannot see from the outside, but there is a counterweight, and the cage is the lift itself, which may be loaded or which may be empty. So the drive has to operate in all these four quadrants: forward motoring in the first quadrant, forward braking in the second quadrant, reverse motoring in the third quadrant, and reverse braking in the fourth quadrant. So this is the multi-quadrant operation of an electric drive. Now let us see what happens. You see that we have a motor and we have a load. Primarily, you know that we have a motor and we have a load. This is the basic requirement. We have a motor, and the motor is connected to a load. We have a motor and we have a load. And the motor torque is opposing the load torque. If this is the motor torque, the load torque is in the opposite direction. The motor speed is in this direction. Let's say omega m. So this is how the motor and the load are coupled. We have a coupling in between. Now, sometimes you know that the speed of the load may be different from the speed of the motor. So the coupling may not be direct. It can be through a gear. Here we have two different loads here, TL0 and TL1. We have two different loads. And we are talking about the equivalent drive parameter. If we have more than one load, how does the motor see the combination of the loads? Now, this load TL1 is connected to the motor by means of a gear. This is a gear arrangement. So this gear has got some teeth in the motor side and some teeth in the load side. So this N is basically the number of teeth. This is number of teeth. This is also the number of teeth. When we have the gears will have these teeth. So these are the teeth of this first gear, teeth of the second gear. I mean the gear in the opposite side of the load here. So the ratio of this number of teeth, N by N1, is called A1. A1 is basically called the gear ratio. Similarly, we can have a second gear also. I mean, we may have another load here, or we may have a gear like this. Okay, we may have a load which is again is connected here, or we may have this extension here. So we may have another gear here, and we can have another load in this case. So we can have all these possible combinations. Okay. Let us now concentrate only on one gear. So say in this case we just have one gear here, right? So when the motor is running, the motor is having a speed of omega m. Omega m is radian per second, as I already said. And the load TL1 is having a speed which is omega m1. It is again in radian per second. And the inertia of the motor load combination of the zeroth load is J naught. This is in kg meter square. And again, the load 1 has got the inertia J1. It's also in kg meter square. So we have J naught is the inertia of the zeroth segment. J1 is the inertia of the first segment. Now, if the motor is trying to see, motor is driving the load TL0 and also driving this load TL1. And the two speeds are different. The first speed is omega m and the load 1 speed is omega m1. So what is the equivalent inertia seen by the motor? The equivalent inertia, let's say J. So when we try to find out the equivalent inertia, we have to equate the total kinetic energy. Total kinetic energy of the system is half J omega m square. Half J is the moment of inertia. Omega m is the angular speed. So half J omega m square is the kinetic energy of the entire system. Now, the total kinetic energy of the entire system is equal to the kinetic energy of the zeroth load, which is half J naught omega m square, plus the kinetic energy of the first load, which is half J1 omega m1 square. And we assume that the gear doesn't have any inertia. The gear is very thin gear, so we neglect the inertia of the gear. So the total kinetic energy of the system is given by half j omega m square. And that's equal to the sum of the individual kinetic energy. Now, if you want to find out what is J, what is J here? J is the equivalent inertia. Equivalent inertia. We're trying to find out the equivalent drive parameter. So this is the equivalent inertia. So the equivalent inertia J is equal to, if I divide this omega m in the right hand side, and half basically gets cancelled. So we have J naught omega m square will be cancelled, plus J1 omega m1 by omega m square. Now we have already defined a gear ratio. The gear ratio A1 is the number of teeth of the primary side or the motor side n by the number of teeth of the load one side, that is n1, and that's equal to omega m1 by omega m. So the number of teeth and the speed are inversely proportional. So it means omega m is the speed of the motor side and omega m1 is equal to n1 is the number of teeth of the gear in the load one side by number of teeth of the gear in the motor side. So n1 by n1, or we can say that n by n1, which is defined as a1, is equal to omega m1 by omega. That's what we have written here, that omega m1 by omega m equal to a1. A1 is called gear ratio. Gear ratio 1, you can say. Gear ratio 1. So if you want to find out the equivalent inertia J, that's equal to J naught plus A1 J1 square. So it is reflected in the motor side as J naught plus the number of gear ratio square into J1. A1 is the ratio of the teeth of the primary side and the ratio of the teeth of the secondary side, n by n1 into J1. Now, similarly, we can calculate or we can evaluate what is the equivalent load torque. See, this motor is giving the power. So this is the motor torque, which is TL. So what is the power? The power which is supplied by the motor is the product of speed and the torque. TL into omega m equal to, the fast load is directly connected. So when there is a direct coupling, the coupling is 100%. There is no gear. So we can say that TL into omega m, the total power which is given by the motor, is the power of the 0th load and power of the fast load. The fast load is having a load torque of TL1 and speed of omega m1. So this is TL1 into omega m1, but this has been coupled with the motor through a gear. That's the gear 1. Gear 1 has an efficiency eta 1. This is actually gear efficiency. Gear 1 efficiency. So we can say that the power which has to be supplied by the motor is something higher than the power which is consumed by the load, because of the finite efficiency of the gear, which is other than 1, which is less than 1. So TL1 into omega 1 by eta 1 is the power which will be supplied by the motor. So if we divide left hand side and the right hand side by omega m, what we get here is equivalent load torque. This is equivalent torque of the motor is equal to TL naught, the torque of the load 0, plus TL1 into A1. A1 is omega M1 by omega M divided by eta 1. Eta 1 is the efficiency of the first gear. So we come to a conclusion that equivalent inertia and equivalent torque can be given by this expression. The equivalent inertia is given by J naught plus A1 square, J1 square. In case we have more than one gears, we have various the ratios A1, A2, A3, A4, and so on. So the equivalent inertia seen by the motor is equal to J naught plus A1 square J1 plus A2 square J2, and so on. Similarly, the equivalent torque seen by the motor, equivalent load torque, is equal to TL naught plus TL1 A1 by eta 1, TL2 A2 by eta 2, and so on. This is eta 2. And this is eta 1. So this is how we can write down the expression for the load torque and the inertia for a rotational system. This is basically for a rotational load. It's a rotational system. Now, in many situations, the load may not be rotational. Motor is rotating, no doubt, but the load may be translating. So, for example, when we have an electric vehicle, ultimately the vehicle is moving on the road. It is a translational motion. Lift or the hoist is a translational motion. Behind this motion, there is a rotational load. So we have a conversion from the rotational motion to translational motion. So in that case, what happens is the following. So we have a translational load here. So which means the load here is moving here in a straight line. So we have the motor supplying two loads. One is a rotational load. This is a rotational load. This is a rotational load. And the second one is rotational to linear motion transmission. This is a translational load. Translational load. This is either going up or going down. So the equivalent inertia of the first load along with the motor is J naught. Or we can say this is the 0th load. And for the translational load, it is basically moving in straight line, so we don't say moment of inertia because it's a linear motion. We represent this by its own mass, which is in kg. Mass m1, this is kg. And we have a force in this case, which is in Newton, and the velocity, which is in meters per second, not radian per second. The angular velocity or the angular speed is radian per second, but the linear speed is meter per second. Okay, so we have a rotational load, we have a translational, and we have a mechanism from rotational to linear motion conversion. So if we try to see the equivalent inertia, motor is a rotational system. Motor rotates. So this is the equivalent inertia. So we are trying to find out equivalent inertia. J. So if the equivalent inertia is J here, the total kinetic energy of the entire system is half J omega m square. That's equal to the kinetic energy of the 0th load, which is J naught into omega m square, because the moment of inertia is J naught and the speed is omega m here. So the kinetic energy is half J naught omega m square. And the kinetic energy of the translational load here is half m1 v1 square. Half m1 v1 square. M1 is the mass of the linear translational load, and v1 is the speed or the velocity of the translational load. So half m1 v1 square. So the total kinetic energy is basically the sum of the two individual kinetic energy. So if we divide the left hand side and the right hand side by omega m, what we get here is J equal to J naught plus m1 v1 by omega m whole square. So this is the equivalent inertia which is seen by the motor. Similarly, what about the equivalent load torque? The load torque which is seen by the motor is TL here, equivalent load torque, although the motor is having this torque T. So equivalent load torque can be obtained by equating the power. So TL into omega m equal to the power given by the first load. The power of the first load is TL naught into omega m. Power of the second load as seen by the motor will involve a transmission efficiency which is eta 1. So the first term is the power of the rotational load. The second term is the power of the transmission load. And eta 1 is transmission efficiency. So this is the transmission efficiency. So the equivalent load torque, that is TL, for a transitional load, equivalent load torque, is equal to the load torque of the 0s load, which is the rotational load, plus F by eta 1 into V1, which is the linear velocity of the transition load, V1 by omega. So this is how we can find out the equivalent inertia and the equivalent load torque of a motor load combination. Because ultimately the equivalent inertia and equivalent load torque will be seen from the motor side. The motor has to provide the motive power. The motor has to be rated for, say, certain HP, horsepower, or certain kilowatt. So we have to find out what are the equivalent parameters seen from the motor side, so that we can properly design the power of the motor, properly choose the specification of the motor. So with this, we come to an end of this particular lecture. In the next lecture, we will see more about the load, mechanical load, including the frictional load also, because friction is a part of the load torque. So the details about the load torque will be seen in the next lecture. Thank you.